This is the guy that they found out that was the shooter from the Brown University thing. Apparently, they think that he also killed, they're pretty much certain that he also killed that person who was a MIT professor or a graduate or something like that.
We begin with a Fox News alert. The suspect in the Brown University killings has been found dead inside a storage facility in New Hampshire with a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Thank God.
He killed himself inside the storage unit.
Good.
And the firearms were found at his, in the area of his thigh and in the area of his feet. We are 100% confident that this is our target. And that this case is closed from a perspective of
he dead, yeah, it's over.
Involved. Authorities say he is Portuguese. He's a Portuguese national, went to Brown University for a year in the PhD program in the early 2000s, never graduated. Before that, he went to school in Lisbon, and his classmate was an MIT professor who authorities say the suspect also murdered at his home in the Boston suburbs,
nuts.
just days after the Brown University shooting.
The suspect's car was towed away from this storage facility last night, and authorities say they found evidence related to 2 shootings inside the vehicle. So that's major.
Let's bring in Fox News contributor Paul Morrow, who ran counterterrorism operations for the NYPD. He is, of course, live in Providence, Rhode Island, with reaction. Paul, we learned a whole lot.
So also followed by Barack Obama on X. There were Barack Obama follows like 500,000 people. Doesn't mean anything.
Yesterday, as all of this came to a head, what do you make of everything that we learned?
I don't even know how that happens.
Reactions to these developments.
So I think one of the things that we can sort of set upon here with some confidence is that the motive is going to be a lot less specific than a lot of the speculation had it. The commonality between the 2 crime events seems to be tenuous at best. We may never know, and you know, unfortunately in police work you don't always get a nice, neat resolution, but it looks to me like where we're going to end up is some general gripe against the school, somebody leading a slipping down life.
People like this are just crazy. They're crazy nutball retards. That's what they are. So you can go and try to come up with like a reason why they did something, but the real reason is because they're stupid. They're out of their mind. They're crazy. Nobody goes into like a random school and starts shooting people. And like, this is a person of sound mind.
And then there's this professor at MIT who seems to have been
that's nutball behavior.
Perhaps wanted to be and never quite became. They overlapped in school, as Brian said. They were of similar age. In the MIT case, the professor was married. He seemed to have everything going for him, whereas the perp in this instance seemed to have a lot less. So it looks to me like somebody who was just bitter, lashing out. And it tracks to what we talked about earlier in the week with the possibility that the classroom was just chosen at random. It was the first one he encountered when he went through that unguarded and unsecure outside door.
I don't know if I believe that, especially whenever he just happened to kill somebody who was like a political leader of a minority political group on the campus. I mean, I would not. I mean, it seems like there's a little bit too many coincidences, right? I mean, if this person just happened to position himself in the one place where there weren't a lot of cameras, and then he happened to kill somebody, like this seems like a person who is, like, he's not stupid. This is not a dumb person. It's a hard sell. Yeah, he hit her like 8 times, exactly. So the suspect was an incel. I mean, that's what I've said that many. How many times have I said that?
Propped open or had no key card access during this study hall and other events.
Paul, did it surprise you that we learned 2 things? First of all, a homeless man is the one who gave the tip to the cops to close this case, but he was standing in the building, which talks about the security protocols, even though he's a hero in this event. Also,
wait, so there was a random homeless man in the university just sitting there?
Suspect cased the university 2 weeks before he committed the ultimate crime.
Okay. You give that guy a house.
Yeah, you know, there were echoes of Mangione in this thing because this guy was nowhere near as clever as he thought he was. You know, he graduated or he went to Brown, excuse me, he didn't graduate. But, you know, he thought of himself, I'm sure, as some engineering genius, and so he did this methodical thing where he cased the place and all this other stuff. Well, not only was that how they also picked him up on video when they went out to the residential area, but that's where he encountered somebody who ultimately was his downfall. So he goes in, he's casing around in the place, and, you know, Lawrence, it's an interesting thing. I'm actually not that surprised that it was a homeless person that stepped up. I'm going to tell you why. Homeless people know everything that's going on in the vicinity of where they've decided to squat.
Yeah,
even if it's a
that makes
cardboard
sense.
box outside. When I was on foot patrol, if you buy a homeless guy a Snapple, he'll tell you everything that's going on in your patrol block.
That's
in
probably true.
10 minutes. He knows everything. So this guy, he did the thing that homeless people very often do. They're actually proprietary about, as the saying goes, be it ever so humble, right? And so that's why he says, this guy doesn't belong here. Nobody knows that building like this guy that was living downstairs next to the boiler or something.
Yeah, I know this guy isn't supposed to be in the university. I live in the university. I live here. This is my house. He comes into my house. He starts shooting people. We can't have this.
Shows you how bad
they're going to kick me out.
Security protocols work.
Really?
It does show you just a sort of human dynamic here that he felt something was off. He followed this guy. He scared the guy. The guy ran. But then he came forward, as we know now, and he's the one who allowed the police to button the whole thing
off my
up.
lawn,
I'm still trying to find out, did he rent that storage facility ahead of time? Did he plan on keeping things there? Was it a murder-suicide? Likely by his, we never know, but was that the plan all along, go to a storage facility and kill yourself?
I would say no, and I'm not basing that on anything more than you guys know, but just the psychology, this is similar to a whole bunch of terrorism cases I had and things like that. He did all of this planning, and maybe it wasn't high-level planning, it wasn't nation-state level planning here, but he did do the recon.
He did do planning.
The building,
yeah.
He did all this stuff.
I think he did
a
a pretty good job.
He had the storage location rented ahead of time.
I mean, he did a good enough job to be able to kill somebody else. I would say that's relatively impressive.
Is how the whole thing went. And so I think he thought that he had outsmarted everybody and that he was going to be able to toy with Brown specifically, with MIT, and probably with society in America at large. I think he had elevated himself to that position.
He's that guy.
He probably was monitoring a lot of the reporting and getting a kick out of it. But I think he also realized they're closing in on me. And when it was clear to him he wasn't going to get away, he did what he did. What else is in there, I don't know. I haven't heard they've recovered a manifesto or anything like that.
Geez.
So as I said,
I think they need to stop publishing these manifestos. It's hard for me to say there should be a law against it, but I think that there definitely should be these mainstream media publications. I think it would be better, and I think ultimately it would lead to less shootings if the identities, they should share the name and the race and the gender of who did it, but they shouldn't be posting face photos. I would be okay if they never posted face photos or manifestos from any of these people, because I think that that's the main reason why we have so much of this happen in the United States. Is that I remember, this is a long time ago, it was maybe 2009, something like that, that there was one of these things that happened in Canada. There was some guy, he went out and I think he shot a few of officers or military members. And I remember reading about it, and then I never heard who it was. I never heard why he did it. I never saw a picture of him. It just basically disappeared. And I think that honestly, that's a better way to handle this, because if you do that, then you're not basically enabling and creating a reward structure around people that do this, because people that do this generally are marginalized by society. They are doing it for attention, and then you give them a lot of attention, and then, well, big surprise, now there's going to be everybody fucking talking about them. So that's it. The manifestos let these people get their voices out there. Yeah, and I think it's a big problem.
Never really get a good
answer.
It definitely is. What his motivations here were.
Paul, how long does it usually take a coroner to determine when somebody died? And then by that determination, we'll learn when he shot himself, if he even knew that police were hot on his heels.
An experienced coroner will know now. Not my area of expertise, but he's got a pretty good idea now. They can tell from the lividity in the body, where the body was lying, how much blood pooled, without being too graphic here. They can look at the eyes. There are these
form of vitalism.
They could see the broken blood vessels. They can tell a lot just from looking. And every cop has this story. The ME, the medical examiner,
media glorifies these characters
the scene and has to pronounce. And that very often is who
I think they elevate their profile.
As to in a lot of towns around the country, sometimes without even being a doctor, whether or not it is suspicious or not. There's a lot of slippage there. But I can guarantee you that's not going to happen in this case. By now, they have a pretty good idea of when he did it. They know how he did it, obviously. And I think that one of the things they're going to be looking at here, aside from in the digital world, to see if he's in contact with other people, et cetera, but they're going to be looking at ballistics here. And here's why I go to that. I don't see how, if he used the same gun in both instances, they didn't connect the ballistics from MIT to Brown instantaneously. Now, the task force was competent. I don't care what anybody says. Once they got rolling after that false lead by Monday, they were moving good. So
I could explain that maybe by they didn't want to reveal that, because in revealing that, it would make the person that they were trying to catch be aware that they had a higher level of understanding of what this person was doing. Like, basically, it's the same reason why the military doesn't show, like, all of their data and how they figure out why one of these Venezuelan boats is a drug dealer boat. Because if you explain your methodology and your process of catching people, you also explain how to avoid your methodology and process of catching people. So I don't know if this is a good application of that mentality, but it seems like it would be. That they very clearly would not want to reveal that information, because in doing so, they could effectively show a few cards in their own hand as well.
Would have done that. So either he used one gun one place and one in the other,
or he could have used a different gun.
He had other guns we don't know about. I would be curious to see how the ballistics come back. But at the end of the day, what I'm getting, and I don't mean to be too graphic, I'm getting a bitter loner loser. Slipping down life. We used to call it in the terrorism world loser to lion, because he wanted to make his mark in the world.
Yeah.
He wanted to be somebody. ISIS knows how to play on that. I'm not suggesting he was in touch with ISIS, but that's the same phenomenon.
Yeah,
and
true.
I think that he just came up here to lash out at something he felt failed him.
Yeah. So, Paul, I was going back and forth with some buddies that's still on the job, and they had the theory that this guy was going to continue, but he felt the cops closing in. Have you heard anything from your sources about that?
It's probably true. All of Asmon's
no, I
shut
haven't
up.
Heard anything that would be indicia of him continuing, but I don't think that is at all an outlandish supposition. In light of the fact that, as I said, he did all of this planning.
Did he off himself? He did.
Guns. He moved up here. Remember, he was in Miami. He moves up here to New England in the winter. It's kind of a reverse migration, right? And he does all of this stuff. He gets the apartment. He gets the storage location. He's got the two guns, which they're going to look at where and how he got them. He does the casing at a location for upwards of 2 weeks, according to what we're hearing. He went in and out of the building. You know, all of this stuff tells me that he wanted to get away with it. This was not a suicide mission. Let's be clear. And so, as a result,
seems like
you have
that,
to say to yourself, he thought he was going to sail off into the sunset, snicker about it, and then potentially, do it again. And so I hope that one of the things we get out of this is that the universities, many of which were very on board with defunding, we've seen university takeovers and campus protests where the police are not exactly popular. I hope they take it upon themselves to look at the protocols no matter where they are. We have active shooter training these days in high schools and grammar schools.
Yeah, of course they have to have that, because there's people that are crazy everywhere. I mean, it's common sense. I have a friend who thinks terrorists should be tortured in such an extreme way. I disagree. I think that leads us back to a barbaric world. What do you think? I think that whenever you look at something like terrorism, you should approach it from the perspective of, what can I do to make other people not perform this action? And whatever will create the most detrimental, the largest inducement to not perform this action, then you should apply that policy, whether that's torture, murder, like a public execution, putting them in jail for life, like whatever it is. I think it's all on the table. Like, for me, like, morally, I think it's all on the table. And so whatever you do should be done not for vengeance, but this is a utilitarian decision that you make in order to reduce the amount of people that will do this in the future. So that should always be the application. You should always be thinking about how, because whenever you're doing any sort of in my opinion, like the police, the government, like, they're there to protect the people, right? And so whatever will lead to the greatest level of safety of the public, that is the thing that you should do, even if it's at the expense of the person who's a bad actor. Well, they should have thought of that before they decided to be a bad actor.
Because of school shootings.
That's my thinking.
the faculty and the students in these Ivy League schools, they're not immune to this, no matter how much they think they are. And so if there's anything that comes out of this that's good, they got to do a hot wash here and say to themselves, are we in the same position? Because this was just a target waiting to happen.
Yeah, and lastly, I would flood Miami. If you want the facts, that's where he was. Do you think the investigators are there now, being that he's dead and this has been solved? How aggressive will they be in trying to reestablish motive, or to establish motive by maybe going back to find out where he lived?
People get obsessed with finding the motive. That's always how it is. Always obsessed. The way you described a terror should be dealt with. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like it's any like, I mean, people have like a million torture theories, right? But like, that's all I'm saying is that you should always approach law enforcement from the perspective of how can you prevent people from breaking the law? And that should be your primary focus.
He came there in November.
It's that simple.
They were there once they had him ID'd. They were there probably all week.
Motives matter.
The name, but we couldn't go with it, Brian, because it was unconfirmed. And as you know, Fox is going to go with stuff that we can confirm and corroborate.
Yeah.
So I was hearing that name, a couple of days ago, maybe a day and a half ago. So these days all blended together. But if I knew it, obviously they knew it. They had been down there. I can guarantee you, the FBI Miami office, Miami PD, they were scraping this thing, soup to nuts to try to figure out what is this guy about. I'm sure they did an entry into his location. They were on his cyber stuff. We know they were trying to get onto his phone. But again, it shows the
motives or
planning.
is trained
He did
for
this
that.
thing
I
with
get
the
it.
Google
I
phone
just
and the
you see what I'm
European
saying,
SIM
right?
card. So, he had that much capability. So very clearly, they are all over this. They are looking for a motive because the people who do this kind of thing, particularly at the federal level here, because it's cross-country, they're going to be looking for commonalities and how to prevent the next one, which is the hardest thing in police work, to prevent something that hasn't happened yet.
Hard to target. Paul, thanks so much. Great
Yeah,
work last
sometimes.
night and now throughout the day.
I'm Steve Ducey.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I feel like a guy like that, people like that get disenfranchised, disaffected, and disconnected from society. They become increasingly more paranoid, increasingly more extreme, and then before you know it, they go out on some shooting rampage or something like that. And I think that's generally what happens, is that if you look at a lot of these guys, like many of them are loner men. Now, obviously, not all of them, but like this is an overwhelming percentage of them are men who are not successful in life, right? They're resentful, unsuccessful men. And I think that's the big reason. You can come out, like there's like 4 or 5 different reasons that come out of that. But at the end of the day, I think that is the fundamental reason.